Imagine turning on to Love and Hip Hop Atlanta expecting to see a typical evening filled with slick remarks, drama, and shade, only to be engulfed in a hurricane instead. Nobody anticipated it. Whispers are circulating quickly. The streets of Atlanta are humming with a single question as fans play the video repeatedly. Did Yandy and Rasheeda truly let their argument to escalate into violence? As soon as they entered the same room, there was a strained atmosphere. However, what followed took things to a level that no one had anticipated. Words weren't enough this time, according to insiders. After months of simmering tension, it appears that the pot has finally boiled over between these two powerful ladies. According to some, it began with dubious remarks regarding allegiance. Some people think money and power were at the center of it all, while others say it was about respect for family. Whatever the truth, the altercation got out of hand so quickly that even the producers had to scramble. Online fans are describing it as one of the franchise's most explosive moments. And if you think the whether it's rumors or not, one thing is for sure. The animosity between Rasheeda and Yandy has escalated to a point where it might not be reversible. Even before either woman spoke, there was a palpable sense of expectation in the air. People felt that something wasn't quite right. A storm is building in the set's corner. Rasheeda's shoulders were squared when she entered, and with her chin slightly raised above normal, it was clear she wasn't there to strike up a conversation. Everyone in the vicinity sensed the change instantly as her energy shouted confrontation. It felt like two hurricanes colliding in the midst of the ocean when she fixed her gaze on Yandy, who was standing composedly on the other side of the room. Dangerous, inevitable, and inexorable. Rasheeda wasted no time at all. Sharp and tinged with animosity that had obviously been building for a while, her remarks sliced through the tension like a razor. With each accusation, she raised her voice and yelled, "You mock my style, you mock my jewelry, you mock my hustle. But let's be honest, you go about pretending like you created this and gave me a job." People standing nearby gasped, "You can't discredit me. Not here. Not in Atlanta. This is my house. This is my franchise." As they attempted to record every word without getting caught in the crossfire, several people gripped their phones more tightly. Even in a drama-heavy episode, this felt different. Shade wasn't the only thing. It was war. But Yandy did not recoil. Her posture remained firm, her demeanor remained serene, and when she did speak, it was in a tone so measured that it nearly hurt more than shouting ever could. "You're home," she said. "Girl, why are the lights so dim if this is your house?" She repeated, smirking slightly. "You can't remove the receipts, but you're boasting about titles. The scandals cannot be erased. Legacy and longevity are not the same thing." Her statements caused a commotion in the room, with whispers flying as individuals. Rasheeda's face tightened at the mention of scandals. It was no secret that Kirk's past mistakes had been dragged through the public eye, but hearing them thrown back at her by Yandy was like ice, cutting deeper because it carried the weight of confidence. They exchanged wide-eyed looks while discussing how she said it, not just what she said. Rasheeda yelled, her voice shaking with rage, "Don't you dare act like you better than me when you've been riding on other people's pain just to stay relevant." Yandy was like pouring petrol on fire. "Don't you dare bring my marriage into this. You call that power? No. That's desperation." Yandy tilted her head slightly, she asked softly, but with a bite underneath. "Desperation? Honey, desperation is holding on to a man who has repeatedly embarrassed you on national television and then still trying to convince the world that you two are royalty. If that's your throne, you can keep it. I don't need it." Her calm demeanor never broke. The audience as a whole gasped once more, with some hiding their lips and others muttering, "Oh my goodness," under their breath. The tension in the room had officially shifted from uncomfortable to explosive. Rasheeda's eyes widened, her hands moving as she gestured wildly, pointing at Yandy with every word. "You're not Atlanta," Rasheeda spat. "You're not welcome here. This isn't where you belong. You can't wear a cap and call yourself Atlanta, even though you came down from New York believing you could run things. It doesn't operate that way. You're not familiar with the streets. The grind is unknown to you. You're not familiar with the culture. My city is this one." Yandy's serene smile reappeared, her gaze fixed on Rasheeda's. "Funny," she said, maintaining a steady tone, "because I still outshine you here, regardless of where I'm from. Atlanta wasn't necessary for me to feel validated. Kirk's drama wasn't necessary to establish my relevance. To be honest, Your only experience with grind is tidying up your husband's mess. The crown is made of paper, but you can wear it as you like. Rasheeda surged a step closer, bringing them almost face to face as the words cut through the air. The people in the throng tensed, taking a small step back as though something might happen at any moment. The producers exchanged anxious looks as they discussed whether to intervene or allow the cameras to continue. For whatever was going on, the ratings were gold. Rasheeda shouted, "Say that again," her voice trembling with rage. "Repeat it to my face," Yandy said, leaning closer and speaking in a low but deadly clear voice. A few gasps and the distant murmur of "Oh, hell no," were the only sounds to break the terrible quiet that followed. Paper crown. Rasheeda felt the need to do more than talk, and her body shook as her hand twitched. However, she held back for an instant. As she attempted to regain control, her chest rose and fell quickly, but the words were too painful. Then came the shocking moment that fans would watch over and over again. Yandy stated, "You can shout about being queen all you want, but at the end of the day, you're raising a legacy founded on." Rasheeda froze for a moment, her eyes flashing with pain and rage. It was a line that struck at the heart of everything she had fought to protect: her marriage, her family, her reputation. The crowd's reaction was instantaneous, a mix of shock, sympathy, and anger. Betrayal. No matter how hard you try, you can't erase that. "Don't you talk about my family like that? Don't you dare. You think you can come here and disrespect me?" Rasheeda shouted back, her voice cracking as her words stumbled over one another, her passion overwhelming her strategy. That's when the energy changed again. The shouting became louder, overlapping, each woman trying to drown out the others, and some onlookers tried to intervene, calling for them to stop, but their voices were drowned out by the commotion. One cast member muttered, "This is going to get physical. Disrespect what I built. Disrespect everything I stand for. Nah, I'm not having it." Additionally, the weight of that with her face inches from Yandy's and her finger pointed straight at her chest, Rasheeda moved forward, her words resonating like thunder before a storm. "You want to test me? Proceed. However, keep in mind that you had best not miss when you came for me." Yandy didn't blink, flinch, or move. She just raised her chin, her coolness a sharp contrast to the flames burning before her. "Trust me," she said, barely audible to those around her, "I never miss." Then, like a rope pulled too tight, the tension broke, chaos broke out, the crowd screamed. Producers hurried forward, and in that moment, it became evident that this was something much more dangerous than a verbal battle. The room fell into complete chaos as soon as those last words were spoken. Producers rushed forward in an attempt to separate the women, but their efforts only fueled the hysteria. Cameras trembled as crew members frantic. "Don't get mad at me for saying what everybody already knows." The cast members around them gasped. Even the ones who tried to remain neutral couldn't hide their shock. People shook their heads and covered their mouths in shock, but nobody dared to move between the two women. It seemed like everyone in the room had decided to let the storm play. Yandy cocked her head, her face unreadable, and then shrugged slightly before saying, "But even now, I still managed to surpass you." The drama didn't end there though, as fans videotaped from every angle, already planning the social media captions they would use when posting the clip. That line drove the crowd into a frenzy, and even those who wanted to support Rasheeda couldn't resist the sting of the truth. Kirk unexpectedly showed up by Rasheeda's side as producers were able to pull her back a few steps, which only served to fan the flames. "Come on, babe," he said. He whispered, "It ain't worth it," in an attempt to soothe her. But his attempt was immediately unsuccessful, and Yandy grabbed the opportunity, narrowing her eyes and focusing on Kirk. "Oh, you appear now. It's funny that you're never present when she sobs on TV." With a tone full of irony, she remarked, "But the second the cameras are rolling, suddenly you a husband again." The whole room exploded, some yelling too loudly, some moaning, and some laughing. Kirk's face tensed up in rage. Rasheeda's voice broke as she spun towards him. Her comments broke not only out of rage, but also from a deeper wound that Yandy had managed to rip wide open. See what you did. This is why people think they can come at me like this." Later, fans argued online if Yandy's line was excessive. There were those who argued it was the harsh reality that had to be spoken, while some asserted that she was using Rasheeda's suffering as leverage. However, nobody in that room was considering fan reactions or Twitter arguments. They were considering their chances of surviving and containing a battle that was getting out of hand. Rasheeda escaped Kirk's hold and charged forward once more, shouting, "Tell me one more thing about my man." Yandy remained motionless and didn't even blink, instead leaning slightly forward and saying, "Girl, the world has been watching what happens for years. I don't need to say a word." That composed delivery was the last straw, and Rasheeda lunged once more, her hands Carly red rushed in, shouting, "Y'all stop." In the midst of the chaos, other cast members attempted to diffuse the tension, but the producers held her back, and the atmosphere in the room changed from heated words to genuine fear of what might happen next. Everyone knew that if even one hand connected, the entire scene would explode into something even bigger. "Stop it. This isn't it. This isn't the correct method." Her voice cracked as she tried to wedge herself between the two women, but Rasheeda shoved her aside without even looking. "Don't you touch me, Carly. This has something to do with you," Rasheeda yelled. However, Carly never wanted to remain silent. Retorted, "It has everything to do with me if you tear this whole set apart. This ain't just your mess. It's everybody's." Her attempt to act as a peacemaker only served to deepen the dispute. And then all of a sudden, three voices were shouting over each other and overlapping, giving the impression that the room was, "You're jealous," Yandy finally said, her voice calm but deadly serious, as cast members shouted, crew members pulled, phones were recorded, and somewhere in the midst of it all, Yandy stood tall, her expression still composed, almost victorious. Every time Rasheeda screamed louder, Yandy responded softer, which only made the words sting more. Rasheeda's body trembled, her breathing ragged, her face a mixture of anger and heartbreak. She screamed back, "No matter how long you've been here, no matter how many years you've put in, you still can't shake the fact that when I walk into a room, I take the spotlight without even trying. That burns you," she said. "Are you jealous? Are you jealous? Please, girl, you have nothing to be envious of. I have something that you don't. What I built, you haven't built. You have no idea how much it takes to maintain a family, a business, or a city. You're not made for it." Like swords, their words clashed in the air, neither prepared to give in. They were each resolved to deliver the decisive blow. Finally, security was called, and as they hurried to take charge of the situation, their heavy shoes pounded across the floor. However, the shouting persisted as the men in black shirts moved between the women, reverberating across the set and burning into everyone's memories. Fans would subsequently describe it as one of the most startling and memorable confrontations in the history of hip-hop and love. The night wasn't even close to being ended, which was the most absurd aspect. Security rushed in, creating a barricade between the two women with their arms extended. The energy didn't settle though, even with multiple bodies between them. Rasheeda was flailing against the hands that attempted to restrain her. Yandy stood tall on the other side, calm, and her voice was raw from shouting. As if she had already won the war, her chin rose. Shouts, gasps, and uneasy laughter filled the air around them. Because everyone understood that this moment would dominate timelines in the past, phones were still held high, recording every viewpoint. The evening was over. People's brains were already creating hashtags. LA Fights Team Yandy and Team Rasheeda. Standing directly behind Rasheeda, Kirk appeared conflicted about whether to drag her out or let her handle things on her own. He begged, "Come on, babe, let's go," in a quiet but tremulous voice. "This is not worth the effort." Rasheeda wheeled towards him with rage in her eyes, but she was only attempting to get a rise out of him. "You hear what she said about you? About us? And you just standing there?" Her words faltered, sorrow slashing through her wrath. "She's been insulting me all night, Kirk. You should be my man and my protector. But where are you when I need you?" Her words caused the room to fall silent for a moment. And fans who later watched the video online said they felt almost guilty because it was no longer just a fight but rather a candid look at their marriage's flaws, visible to all. Don't blame him for what's been public for years. You've been standing by his mistakes, covering for him, fighting battles he started. Yandy capitalized on the silence, her voice steady and calm as she called out across the divide. But they couldn't turn away. "Those battles aren't mine. You can't throw your pain at me just because you're tired of carrying it." Rasheeda lunged once more, but security's hold tightened. "You don't have the right to say his name," she yelled back, her voice almost breaking. "You don't have the authority to discuss my marriage. You have no idea what we have endured. You have no idea what we have endured." Yandy's tone sharpened as her eyes glistened. "Survived or settled? Because there is a significant difference from where I am." The room exploded in commotion as those words impacted like a grenade. "She didn't just say that," one cast member murmured, while another said, "Nope, Rasheeda ain't going to let that slide." There were gasps, cries, insults, and even uncomfortable laughter from those who couldn't believe how deep the cut ran. The fight became more intense and personal, not simply over pride or position on the show. Carly Red, still desperate to play peacemaker, yelled above the tumult, "Y'all stop this now. Y'all tearing each other apart. This ain't just a fight. This is family breaking down." Her words were overpowered by Rasheeda's subsequent scream, but it was painfully personal, and everyone watching knew it. "No matter what I've been through, I'm still standing. I'm still creating. I'm still respected. You can't take that away from me, no matter how many sly remarks you make." "You jealous?" Rasheeda shouted, her voice breaking with both wrath and vulnerability. "Respected? You think they respect you or they just pity you? Because every time they see you, they see Kirk's mistakes, and every time you defend him, you remind them of how much you've endured. That's not respect, baby," Yandy said, slowly shaking her head, her calm manner making the insult even more painful. "Don't you dare pity me. I ain't weak. I ain't broken. I'm stronger than you'll ever be. And I don't need sympathy." Rasheeda's body shook, her lips trembling as if she were going to cry, but instead she doubled down. It was chaos, the kind of scene that even reality TV couldn't script if it tried. The shouting matched the beat of the chaos around them, with security continuing to push, crew members begging, and cast members unsure whether to stay out or step in. Then came what fans later called the ultimate The crowd screamed, the room exploding in noise as the tension finally boiled over, and the contrast between them was striking. Rasheeda's hand slipped free as she yelled over security, and she lunged forward, not quite making contact, but close enough that Yandy flinched for the first time that night. It was a battle of fire and ice, passion and accuracy, and the audience couldn't take their eyes off it. In a matter of minutes, social media erupted, tweets flew over the timeline, and fans split into camps. And Yandy, cold and calculating, with every comment landing like a precisely aimed dart. Memes quickly appeared, with gifs of Rasheeda lunging and Yandy grinning, saturating timelines with captions like "This is the fight of the season" and "Team Petty versus Team Calm." However, the fight that took place inside that room wasn't a meme. Some people praised Rasheeda's passion and defended her right to protect her family, while others praised Yandy's poise and savage comebacks. Producers huddled, whispering urgently, discussing whether to shut down the entire scene or let it burn out on its own. The decision weighed heavily because although the drama was gold for ratings, the risk was getting out of control. It was real, raw, and escalating, and one wrong move could turn it into something unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. Kirk, meanwhile, eventually lost it. "Enough. This ain't the way. Y'all are embarrassing yourselves. You're embarrassing the show. Stop it now, before it's too late," he yelled, his voice stronger than anybody had anticipated. The room briefly halted as all eyes turned to him. The ensuing stillness was deafening, and Kirk's face fell apart as the truth of her words struck harder than any insult Yandy had thrown. Rasheeda wrenched her head towards him, eyes flaming. "Embarrassing myself? Kirk, you embarrassed me long before tonight. Don't you dare act like this is on me." Sensing the change, Yandy delivered the night's final blow. "You see you fighting me, but the real battle's standing right beside you." The fight was no longer the only thing on the table. It was about years of suffering, treachery, and the cracks in a marriage that had been on display for too long. The room erupted in gasps once security kept keeping them apart. But as reality set in, everyone in the room realized that something had changed. This was not just a fight between two women. It was a reckoning, and nobody knew how far it would go before the dust settled. The silence that followed Yandy's final words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. While Yandy stood firm, her arms crossed, her calmness almost mocking in its stillness. While Rasheeda's chest heaved, her face streaked with sweat and rage. The camera zoomed in, capturing every moment of emotion. Kirk avoided eye contact, his jaw clenched, and Carly Red shook her head, muttering under her breath, "This is excessive. Too much." Rasheeda finally broke the silence, her voice cracking. "You don't know me, Yandy. You don't know the battles I fought." Although no one left, nobody wanted to miss what might happen next. Her words trembled with vulnerability, and for a moment, The anger gave way to tears. "The sacrifices I made to keep this family together. You stand there with your little smirk, acting like you better than me, but you don't understand what it takes to survive in my shoes." Yandy didn't flinch, waiting for the words to sink in before responding. "You right. I don't know your nights." The crowd shuffled uneasily, with some lowering their phones, uncertain if they were still watching entertainment or witnessing something too real. The statement struck like a hammer. "I don't know your tears, but I do know that strength isn't about how many storms you weather, but about how you rise after them. And from where I'm standing, Rasheeda, you're not rising. You're drowning, and you're too proud to admit it." Kirk reached out to steady her, but Rasheeda shoved his hand away, glaring at him as if his touch burned. "Don't touch me," she snapped, her voice low but venomous. "Don't you dare touch me." Rasheeda gasped, her lips quivering, her whole body shaking as she tried to fight back tears. The room fell silent, everyone sensing, "You think I came here to tear you down? Nah, I came here because I don't play fate." Yandy took a small step forward, her voice still calm but sharper now, as the raw fracture between them widened. This was no longer just a feud with Yandy. It was an unraveling, a lifetime of pain spilling out in front of cast crew and cameras. Rasheeda retorted, her words like fire. "You can shout queen all you want, but queens don't fight for crowns. They don't fight their sisters to prove their worth. They lead, they inspire, they elevate. But all you've done tonight is expose your own wounds. What about you, huh? You pretend to be all-powerful, but you're not. You hide behind that composed facade as though it improves you, but it only makes you appear more phony. At least I stand by my truth, no matter how sloppy it may be." The crowd leaned in, eager for every word, every twist of the knife, and then, suddenly, it was Carly who screamed loud enough to cut through the storm. "Enough, both of y'all," her voice echoed, trembling with determination. The back and forth was unrelenting, like two boxers trading blows in the last round of a fight, neither willing to fall, neither willing to surrender. Desperation. "You're destroying one another. For what purpose? To establish who is queen, to demonstrate who is more genuine. This isn't about cities or crowns, but you guys don't see it. This has to do with hurt and how you guys are allowing it to affect everyone else." The room fell silent for a moment. For once, Rasheeda and Yandy turned to face Carly, their glares matching as though they were daring her to go on. She didn't give up though. With her voice now calm, Carly stated, "This is bigger than y'all. Perhaps neither of you deserves the throne you are fighting for if you are unable to recognize that." Her remarks were forceful, but prior to Rasheeda turned back to Yandy, her rage rekindled, so they could sink in. Yandy's lips curled in